Honey, I'm home.
I'm in the study, dear, and I have your lemonade.
Well, it looks like somebody's been a busy little bee.
I'm just finishing up balancing the checkbook.
You know, I'm really proud of you. I think it's great that you've worked so hard on this. I'm so sorry that I thought you couldn't grasp our finances.
Don't worry about it, dear. This has actually been good for me. You know, I think I'm finally starting to realize the importance of keeping a budget.
Oh, that's swell. I can't tell you how relieved that makes me feel. So, how does our financial picture look?
Well, our monthly income is $5,500, and our monthly expenses $7,500. That's not including the house payment or the telephone bill.
Uh-huh.
I guess I don't have to tell you what that means.
No, I guess you don't.
We can finally take that trip to Maui.
You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but one of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. That's the signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the Dead Zone.
Honey, what are you talking about?
What do you mean, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Maui. We've been saying for years we want to go.
Yes, we have, but do you really think now is the right time?
Oh, absolutely, dear. The birds of paradise are in full bloom.
No, I mean financially.
Darling, were you listening to anything I was saying?
I think so. You were saying that we have $2,000 more in expenses than we do income.
That's right.
And somehow that means that we can spend an additional $3,000 on a vacation?
Absolutely.
Honey, I just don't think that's possible. At least, not until I buy some new luggage.
Well, I don't think that'll be a problem. I just bought us a new stove.
What good is a new stove if we don't remodel the kitchen?
Let's add a second story to the house.
That's a great idea. And I need some new golf clubs.
I'd like a new makeup kit.
A bowling ball
and
bag.
some new shoes.
Hubcaps.
Ooh, some lawn chairs for the garden would be
A
nice.
timeshare.
Let's get some bikes for the kids.
A bike for me.
Charles and Margaret, an ordinary couple with extraordinary dreams. They live in a world between heaven and hell, a purgatory made up of bottom lines that have no bottom, a world where plenty of checks means plenty of money, a world where high-interest credit card balance transfers and interest-only mortgages are more than just a bad idea, they're a way of life. They live here, now, yet they are strangers to this dimension. They live in the Dead Zone.
Dish towels.
Electronic thingamajiggers that I have absolutely no use for?
New vacuum cleaner.
A Jeep.
And some wall hangings.
How about a pool?
Well, that is going to be our kickoff for our series that we're starting today called Uncommon Generosity. And we're going to take a few weeks in this season of all about giving, and we're going to find out what God has to say about giving. And not just getting by, but being uncommonly generous. And before we do that, I want to welcome everybody who might be listening by way of iTunes or who might be watching us on YouTube. We say welcome to all of you, and we just expect a great time in this series that's coming up. Before I get into that real quickly, I want to say a huge happy birthday. Margie Paul's in here too. Where's Margie sitting at? I saw her. Would you raise your hand? Margie, I see. All right, perfect. Happy birthday, Margie. Happy birthday. She serves with Dwayne here at our church, and we just love them with all of our hearts. There's one other thing I want to tell you about that I failed to do earlier in the announcements. You know, we have some guys who are part of us who are serving overseas right now, and Casey Pete and Trevor Lafferty are some awesome guys, great friends of ours, and also members of this church, and they are stationed overseas right now, and we just thought it would be an awesome thing to send gift packages, care packages to them, and just bless them, just to let them know we're thinking about them, let them know their church family loves them. And how many of you guys know it can be lonely out there? You can be surrounded by people, but it can be lonely because home, you're not at home. So we're going to do something next week. If you would like to bring in a card that just says, you know, we love you, bring in a card. I'm not positive what my latitude on this announcement is, is, but bring in something small that you think maybe we could send over there. If we can get it in the box, we'll do that. If not, but let me give you these names real quick. If you can jot these down. Ladies are usually better at this than guys are, so wives, write this down. Would you do that, please? One, Casey Pete. That's P-E-E-T. Casey Pete. P-E-E-T. And the other one, the other gentleman is Trevor Lafferty, L-A-F-F-E-R-T-Y, Trevor Lafferty. And if you want to sign something on behalf of your family, we are going to try to take these up next week from you guys, and then we'll probably give one more week for people to bring things in, and we'll be able to bless these guys and send that stuff off to them as soon as we can, just to let them know we love them in that sense. Well, listen, we're starting this series today. And I'm really actually pretty excited about it. You notice we didn't call this series Uncommon Wealth or Uncommon Savings. We're calling this series Uncommon Generosity. You know, a lot of people can, pop a quarter into the tin cup of the gentleman who's, panhandling on the side of the street. And, that might be in a lot of folks' eyes counted as generous, and maybe it is. Or a lot of folks might, leave a little extra for their server around Christmas time, or maybe when the service was exceptional. And, that's not really that uncommon either. People do that a lot. But I believe with all of my heart that if we can tap into what God's heart is, if we can say, Lord, how do you live toward us? How do you act toward us, even before it's deserved or warranted? What makes your generosity uncommon? And as we look over the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to see what God has to say about living uncommonly generous. It's not easy for us to do that. Matter of fact, I think Josh just called me this week, and he says, I'm looking at my twin boys, and he says, I think I've figured out when the seed of the devil goes into children. And I said, what? And he was talking about having his they're 5 months old, is that right? 2 5-month-old boys laying right next to each other, laying on their back, and he'll put a toy in each of their hands. And they'll be rattling those toys like kids do and putting it in their mouth. But it was the second that one of those young men saw that the other one had a toy. Not that he couldn't play any longer with his own toy, but he wanted both toys. Our nature, before ever being taught, before ever being, trained in any kind of selfishness, for some reason it's opposite of being generous. And what is that? What is that looks out for self first and foremost? Amen? That carries over into so many other areas of our lives. It carries over into so many places that affects other relationships and other people. And I believe with all of my heart that we have dammed up, we've blocked up some of the flow of being a Christ follower when we're not living a life of generosity. And I think that that's a great kind of place for us to go today. I actually had an interest in this when I was really young. And I made a choice when I was about 17 or 18 years old that I got a hold of the concepts of being a giver. I got a hold of the concepts of not just giving in offerings. First off, I found out the difference between a tithe and an offering. I saw that they had 2 different purposes in the economy of God. And I said at a young age, God, I want you to be my supplier. I want you to lead me. I don't want emotions to lead me in my giving. When I was a young assistant pastor at a church in Central Florida, I remember that I was the only person working in the office. We were a small operation, and the pastor sometimes didn't wake up till 11 o'clock, and I'm going, man, he's got it good. But I would be in the office, and I remember that on one Monday morning, we had just finished a 3-night revival with a guest preacher, a guest evangelist. And I'll say now in retrospect that he was one of those heavy pressure giving kind of guys. And, I look back in that, and I just don't want to be like that. I don't want to have people give because it's the hype of the moment or anything. And that's exactly what happened. That a lady called us, and on Monday morning, and I knew she was older, and she probably was watching what she needed to give and everything, and she called, and she was in tears.